got an idea. And I'm not sure if it's a good one, but I'm posting it on the internet, so I'm sure you'll tell me if it's stupid. So this past week, in the past few days, there have been a lot of moves. The Leafs traded Richard Panik to the Chicago Blackhawks for Jeremy Morin. Mini move. Philadelphia manages to trade Vincent Lecavalier and Luke Schenn to the Kings for Jordan Wheel and a third. Montreal trades Dustin Tokarski to the Ducks for Max Freiberg. The Canucks get Emerson Edom for Nicholas Jensen and a pick. The Caps signed Mike Richards. I don't know why we didn't make a bigger deal of that one. That was a huge story this past summer. And before this little January cluster of moves, the Habs get Ben Scrivens in exchange for Zach Cassian. He goes to the Oilers. Rob Scuderi went to the Blackhawks in exchange for Trevor Daley. He goes to the Penguins. Every year it seems to be like, all right, we're not going to do anything. We're just going to leave it. We're just going to let it be quiet. And then one team makes a move and the dam breaks. Let's take the early part of the season. We'll evaluate our teams and then we'll go on a nice little Christmas break. There's the annual GM meetings. A bunch of people meet up at the World Juniors and then all of a sudden stuff starts happening. And sometimes it's just little stuff and then sometimes it's Seth Jones for Ryan Johansson. And that's the one that got me thinking as a hockey fan. Because for many years, the trade deadline was an event. And it still is, but it's not quite the same, is it? I mean, a few years ago, maybe you see a couple moves happen a month before the deadline and insiders joke like, we're gonna have nothing to show on deadline day. And of course there usually is. There's always deals on deadline day. But with all the moves that happened in the past week and the magnitude of some of them, the Lecavalier-Schenn deal was huge. Seth Jones for Ryan Johansson is enormous. And the Jonathan Drouin talk just keeps going, keeps going. He might be traded by the end of this video. And I think, oh my goodness, all this flurry of activity. When's the trade deadline? And I look it up and it's February 29th. Which, by the way, thank you NHL for reminding me that it's a leap year. I didn't know, I decided I didn't know. So we got all this movement, a ton of movement, and the deadline is still almost 2 full months away. So what I thought of, and the thought I would like you all to entertain, should the NHL trade deadline get moved earlier? Obviously not this year, it's too late for that, but next year and going forward, should the trade deadline be earlier in February? Should we look at maybe putting it in January? I don't know. Because I used to love it so much, the carnival that it was on deadline day. I would skip school. I would book the day off work. I had to be home to watch it. And you'd see the wide array of reactions from insiders like, oh yeah, I had a feeling that one was going to happen. To what? And I kind of want it to stay that way instead of 8 hours of coverage leading up to a third line winger was traded for a 5th round pick. Find out who after commercial. No, I want the circus, please. Now, a couple issues with my own idea of moving the deadline earlier. One, the All-Star game. You can't have a bunch of guys getting traded before the All-Star game, can you? Because then some teams might not even get a representative. Or because of deals, some teams might get 5. And you can have it right after the All-Star game, but then everyone's just gonna get badgered with, do you think you're gonna get traded in a week? But when you think about it, as opposed to what? Oh, are you excited to be here? The most difficult part, I think, at least from a business standpoint, is the trade deadline is really a line in the sand between the haves and the have-nots. Like, look at how tight the playoff picture is right now in the East and the West, especially the West. Oh my goodness. In the Pacific, you can go from last place in the NHL to second in the division in like a week. But let's pretend, for example, the Winnipeg Jets or the Vancouver Canucks or the Calgary Flames, teams who are all close to the playoffs right now, but currently outside of the playoff picture. Let's pretend the deadline is earlier and all 3 of those teams decide to sell. And now all 3 of those teams are going to stink for the rest of the season, several weeks longer, maybe even a month longer than they would have anyway. So what do you think of the idea? Is it a good idea to move the trade deadline earlier? I mean, I came up with the idea, but I could see why it might not even be that good. Do you think there needs to be a change, or is this just another example of poking and prodding at the NHL too much? Just leave it the way it is.